Okay, so the debate about racks versus cages. Here's where I stand on that. I use racks. I don't use them as my primary caging. I have a small rack downstairs in a separate room that's my quarantine rack. I've got two juvenile boas that are from 2020 that I just purchased, and they are currently in quarantine in a rack downstairs. Right over here, so this is a rack with 41 quart tubs. This rack is completely empty. The thermostat's turned off. I can open up all these drawers. Every single one of them is completely empty. Except that one that I forgot to take the water bowl and substrate out of. But there's no snakes in these racks is what I'm getting at. How do I use racks like these? I use them as a very, very temporary source for housing young snakes. Whether it be in quarantine or, the snakes downstairs, once I remove them from quarantine, I'll bump them up to the 41 quart. They're in 32 quarts right now. They will stay in a rack for basically their first year. From there, I bump them up. So I use primarily 4-foot cages for all of my boas. I'll be getting some 6-foot cages eventually once my boa constrictors get a little bit larger. But all of my snakes, with the exception of 4 Hog Island boas, stay in cages. The exception to that, if we turn around right here, and of course my Guyana boa is wanting to kind of explore. Let's put him back on this perch right here. Come on, sweetie. All right, so this is the only rack that I use to house boas that are above a year old. This is an animal plastics rack, and it has these tubs in them that are roughly 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, and a little over a foot tall. So if I pull out this rack, you can see here there's plenty of space both in the length, the width, and the height. Now, this isn't suitable for keeping a full-grown adult boa constrictor, in my opinion. But for dwarf to semi-dwarf localities like Hog Island boas, where the males top out about 4 feet or so, the female Hog Islands, I'll eventually put them in the larger caging. But for your smaller localities, this provides ample space. If you look into the tub right here, you'll see I've got a water bowl, I've got a branch right here, I've got a dry hide box and a moist hide box that have sphagnum moss in. So, before I opened this cage, actually, as soon as I opened it up, the snake was in the humid hide. He had his head poking out, but then it went back in. But I'm not going to get this snake out. I just fed it. But plenty of space for a young boa constrictor and even an adult of a dwarf locality. So racks have their place. Most people use them in some way or fashion eventually. But that's just my theory on how and when I use the racks. Just my 2 cents.